Well, here we are as we go into the second month of 2025. Georgia's still thinking about their loss to Notre Dame. It seemed like it was the kind of game that Georgia could have won, but their offense simply did not click. And so, if you were Georgia, you would think that the first priority, first order of business would be to get this offense back up to speed where it becomes a weapon instead of a liability. But Georgia, despite hitting the portal with some receivers and some quarterbacks and other players as well, they've done nothing regarding their coaching staff, or at least they haven't announced anything. So as fans, we're expecting something to be done. Georgia, if they continue along this path offensively, will become an irrelevant football team no matter how good their defense might get. And let's not forget that defense may never be as dominant as we saw in 21 and 22. It's just not feasible. It's just not feasible to expect to have that kind of defense again. But despite that, Georgia did have a very good defense, and I think they always will with Kirby Smart. But the offense has to be dynamic. It has to be something that the opponents actually have to game plan for. And Georgia has made it very easy to game plan for this offense. The most predictable offense I've seen from Georgia, even less dynamic than some of the Mark Richt offenses. This past year, this Georgia team was very predictable. And so you might ask, why is a guy like me or someone like you talking about or listening to someone talk about Georgia football on a beautiful, almost spring-like day here in February? The same day they're playing the Super Bowl, as a matter of fact. It's going to happen later on today. I'm not going to watch. I haven't watched NFL in 7, 8, 10 years. Surely I am not going to watch this Super Bowl. I'm not really boycotting it as much as it's been irrelevant for so long that it's just, I'm certainly not going to watch it today, but I do know that it's there. I couldn't avoid the Super Bowl in the past. My business depended on, it was a peak time to make money in the Super Bowl, the type of business I was doing for a long time. We made a lot of money during Super Bowl Sunday. But I don't do that anymore. And so I don't care about the Super Bowl. If you do, I hope you have a great time watching it. But football, this is the last hurrah for football, so we'll talk about it a little bit. And then it'll become the usual off-season kind of thing that as a sports commentator, you have to keep up with what's happening to the team, but developments don't really happen. But there is one development that needs to happen, and Georgia needs to clarify their coaching situation. So you ask yourself, no matter what you think about Mike Bobo, no matter what you think about the reasons for the offense failing this year, and it did fail, there is no discussion of that matter. Other than the little gimme games, there were no football games this year that Georgia that won the game with their offense by simply being a force. They managed to get points against Texas. In both games, their offense had moments, but they've never played a complete football game, and more often than not, they're fairly easy to defend. And so the development of the receivers, the development of the running backs, all those things are fall under the umbrella to an extent of the offensive coordinator. He is basically in charge of the offense. If you think of it like a government, you'd have a president, that would be your head coach, but he has a cabinet who takes care of specific things, and Mike Bobo would be like a cabinet member, and his cabinet duty is offense, and it has not done well. So a leader, a good CEO, would make adjustments and not allow anything to get in the way with that. And give a guy another year and it turns out to be 7-6, well, then you've wasted a good year. And then once you fall into that kind of level where 3 straight years you failed, now you're starting to become a second-rate outfit. Changing is too late at that point. Who knows if Georgia's even going to be a dynamic player in the NIL world if it doesn't get a little more organized. I think they should be. With that many dollars at stake, that they would be a professional approach to things like offensive coordinator. And if the college football is going to become mini NFL, you're going to have to behave that way. The reasons for Georgia's failure under Mike Bobo should have been predictable. He's done nothing but what he did with Mark Richt, except in this case, he's outdid himself. We can talk to him blue in the face about how he doesn't challenge the defenses and is predictable, and those aren't small concerns. You need a guy out there that can make something happen simply with formation and scheme and keep the defense on their toes, working very hard to just try to keep them getting blasted. That's what you want with your offense, and we've got playmakers to make that happen. We certainly have a quarterback or half a dozen who can make this offense click, and we just signed a boatload of great receivers. We'll have to see how we develop them or how many actually show up on kickoff. So they have the right idea. If the offense fails, get better personnel. But in this case, I'm not even sure that's the right approach. I'm really concerned that we haven't heard anything. So what do you think? Do you think the fact that he has not said, hey, Mike Bobo is going to be here next year, or he hasn't announced a replacement? Last time when Monken left, we'd already had Bobo by this time. So is not hearing anything a sign that Bobo's coming back, or is it a sign that Kirby, for whatever reason, is pacing himself to make that decision? It is not a small concern. Georgia is at a crossroads, and Kirby Smart, as a CEO, and he's paid like one, needs to be acting like one, because that's that CEO version of Kirby that worked really well most of the time has brought Georgia to a high level. But you can't ride on your laurels. Things you did in 2017, 2020, 2021 don't have any bearing on what happens tomorrow or today. And at this moment, Georgia is not being run by a very good CEO. A lot of conferences and a lot of schools have turned to, like the NFL, and have a general manager. It's possible Georgia may have to go that route as well. But it looks like Georgia is going to be behind the 8 ball in organization, as they have been most of their existence, instead of the leading edge. And that really is the story. Well, it is my hope that all this is being taken care of behind closed doors, and there's no need to worry. And Kirby Smart will do what he's done for Georgia most of his time here. And when a critical decision has to be made, not only does he make it, but he makes a very good one. That's still possible as well. But we are going to be sitting on the sidelines listening to the birds of spring, and we may not know exactly who's going to run this offense even by then. But what really matters is, does he make the change he needs to make? Or does he go further down the rabbit hole of just having his golfing buddies helping him coach this little football team, and everybody's getting paid, and the team sags a little bit more and a little bit more, but nobody really fusses because they all like Kirby. Just like they all liked Mark Richt and tolerated all manner of the team falling down and failing to grab the brass ring time after time. What made Kirby special was he played for the best, and he shot for the moon, and he hit it. But it looks like lately Kirby has decided good enough is good enough, and that Georgia, 10-3, has always been good enough.